When I was a child, my parents would often chuckle at the stories I told about my imaginary friend. They saw it as nothing more than a sign of an active imagination. Little did they know that my friend was not imaginary at all, and its malevolence will haunt me for a lifetime. My shadowed friend was always there, lurking in the corners of my vision, just out of sight. It whispered to me in a voice like rustling leaves, its words a sinister melody that only I could hear. It promised me secrets, knowledge beyond my years, and I, a naive child, listened to my shadowed friend. The darkness around us seemed to deepen when my shadowed friend was near. It would wrap its inky tendrils around my small body, a suffocating embrace that sent shivers down my spine. The air grew colder, and a foul stench filled the room, like the rot of forgotten dreams. In its presence, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. But the allure of its promises was too strong to resist. It whispered tales of power and control, offering to grant me abilities that no child should possess. I was fascinated, unable to see the malevolence that hid beneath its comforting words. As the days turned to weeks, I began to notice changes in myself. My once bright eyes dulled, and my laughter grew hollow. My parents, concerned, tried to reassure themselves that it was just a phase, that children often had imaginary friends. But they couldn't see the shadowed friend, couldn't hear its sinister whispers. One night, as I lay in bed, the malevolence of my shadowed friend revealed itself. It emerged from the darkness, its form a grotesque merging of a shadow and malice. Its eyes were pits of endless blackness, and its mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Fear paralyzed me as it drew closer, its icy fingers brushing against my skin. The stench of decay filled the room, and I could feel its putrid breath against my cheek. It spoke to me in a voice that echoed with screams of the damned, promising to fulfill its dark desires through me. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but my voice was a feeble whisper in the face of the shadowed friend. It reached into my mind, probing my deepest fears and insecurities, twisting them into grotesque visions that played out before my eyes. I watched in horror as my darkest nightmares came to life, the shadowed friend reveling in my suffering. It wasn't long before my parents grew deeply concerned about my deteriorating mental state. They took me to therapists and psychiatrists, hoping to understand the darkness that had taken hold of me. But the shadow friend was always one step ahead, manipulating my thoughts and feelings to conceal its true nature. As I grew older, the shadowed friend's hold on me strengthened. It whispered insidious ideas into my mind, urging me to commit acts of cruelty and violence. I watched helplessly as I became a puppet, controlled by its malevolent desires. My actions grew more erratic and violent, and my parents were at a loss for how to help me. They tried everything, from medications to counseling, but the shadow friend's influence was too strong. It reveled in the chaos and destruction it had caused, relishing in the suffering it had inflicted upon me. I became a prisoner in my own mind, a vessel for the malevolent entity's insatiable thirst for darkness. It reveled in my torment, feeding on my fear and despair. I could no longer distinguish between reality and the shadowed friend's twisted illusions, trapped in the nightmare's existence of its creation. The darkness consumed me, and I felt myself slipping further away from the person I once was. I became a monster, a creature of pure malevolence, and the malevolent entity reveled in its triumph. It whispered in my ear, urging me to commit unspeakable acts, promising that they would bring me closer to it. But deep within me, a glimmer of my former self remained. I fought against the shadow friend's control with every ounce of my being, clinging to the last shreds of my humanity. It was a grueling battle, a war between light and darkness that raged within me. One fateful night, as the shadow friend's influence reached its peak, I made a desperate choice. I confronted it head on, summoning every ounce of my willpower to resist its control. The battle that ensued was fierce. It was fighting with a ferocity I had never seen before. But I was determined to break free from its grasp, to reclaim my own mind and soul. With a final surge of strength, I cast it out, banishing it back into the darkness from whence it came from. The room seemed to brighten, the air growing warmer and fresher. I was free, but the scars of my ordeal remained. I had lost years of my life, years I would never get back. My actions during that time haunted me, a constant reminder of the darkness that had taken hold of me. As I look back on that period of my life, I'm still haunted by the shadow's insidious influence and the horrors it inflicted upon me. It was a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest threats are the ones we can't see with our eyes, but feel with our souls.